If you watched my last video and thought, that's only half the story, you were right. Gen X didn't just survive. Gen X paid a price. And today we're talking about what that price actually was. 7 hidden costs that Gen X is still paying right now, today, for the childhood they powered through. And number 5, that's the one nobody wants to admit out loud, because admitting it means everything you built your identity on might be the thing that's breaking you. Cost number 1, you can't ask for help. Picture this. You're 9 years old, you've fallen off your bike, your knee is bleeding, you look around and there's nobody there. No parent running out, no neighbor watching, just you, the sidewalk, and a choice. Cry or get up and walk home. You got up, of course you did. And people will say that made you tough, that it taught you self-reliance, that you should be grateful. Wrong. What it actually taught you is that asking for help is dangerous, that needing someone is weakness, that the safest thing in the world is to need absolutely no one. By the mid-1980s, millions of American children were coming home to empty houses every single day. An entire generation learning the same lesson at the same time. Figure it out yourself, because nobody's coming. And now you're 50, your back hurts, your marriage is strained, your job is crushing you, and the words, "I need help," still feel like surrender. That's not strength. That's a wound that learned to dress itself. Cost number 2, you don't know what safe feels like. Here's the thing about growing up in chaos. You don't just survive it, you adapt to it. Your nervous system rewires itself to expect the next crisis, the next fight through the walls, the next phone call at 2 a.m., the next time everything falls apart. People say Gen X is chill, that you're laid back, easygoing, unbothered. Wrong. You're not chill. You're hyper-vigilant. You learned to scan every room for danger before you learned long division. You can read the energy of a house before you open the front door. You know what a slamming cabinet means. You know what silence before a storm sounds like. Psychologists call this a dysregulated nervous system. Your body got stuck in survival mode decades ago, and nobody ever told it the war was over. You're not easygoing. You're exhausted from a lifetime of waiting for the other shoe to drop. You still sleep with one ear open. You still flinch when someone raises their voice in the next room, even if it's just a TV. You still check the mood of a room before you speak. You're 52 years old, and your body is still standing guard over a childhood that ended 40 years ago. Cost number 3, you parent from a wound. But this next one hits different if you have kids. You swore you'd be different. You swore your kids would never feel what you felt. They'd never come home to an empty house. They'd never wonder if they were loved. They'd never have to guess. So you overcompensated. You gave everything. You showed up to every game, every recital, every parent-teacher conference. You made yourself available 24/7 because the idea of your child feeling alone the way you did makes your chest physically tight. And people say that makes you a great parent. Wrong. What it makes you is a parent running on unprocessed grief. You're not parenting from a playbook. You're parenting from a wound. Every decision filtered through the question, would 10-year-old me have needed this? And the cruelest part? Your kids might never fully understand why you're like this, because you made sure they'd never have to. You didn't just raise your children, you raised the child you used to be. And that's beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. Cost number 4, you lost people and no one noticed. Now this is where it gets real. Gen X grew up when seatbelts were optional, when the drinking age was a suggestion, when your friend's older brother had a motorcycle and no helmet, and nobody thought twice about it, when the kid down the street had a gun rack in his truck at 16, and that was just Tuesday. And some of those people didn't make it. Car accidents, overdoses, suicides that nobody called suicides back then. Friends who were there on Friday and gone by Monday, and the world just kept moving. No grief counselors at school, no moment of silence, no one asking if you were okay. People say Gen X is tough, that you handle loss well. Wrong. You don't handle loss well. You handle loss quietly. You buried your grief in the backyard of your mind and never went back to dig it up because no one taught you how. because no one even acknowledged there was something to grieve. You didn't get closure. You got silence, and you carried that silence for 30 years. And the thing about unprocessed grief, it doesn't disappear. It just finds new places to hide. In the drink you pour at 6 p.m. every night, in the way you shut down when someone gets too close, in the song that comes on the radio, and suddenly you're 16 again, standing in a parking lot, finding out someone you loved is never coming back. You didn't forget. You just never had permission to remember. Quick thing before number 5, and trust me, number 5 is the one that's going to sit with you. If you're nodding along right now, if this feels like someone is finally putting words to something you've carried your whole life, this channel is for you. Hit subscribe. Now, let's keep going. Cost number 5. Your identity is built on a lie. This one is going to be uncomfortable. Gen X wears independence like a badge of honor. I don't need anyone. I figured it out on my own. I'm self-made. And you believe it. You really do. Because it's the story that made everything bearable. People call this resilience. They call it grit. They call it the Gen X superpower. Wrong. It's not resilience. It's a trauma response dressed up as a personality trait. Hyper-independence, the refusal to rely on anyone, the need to control everything, the inability to be vulnerable even with the people you love. Psychologists now recognize this as one of the most common responses to childhood emotional neglect. You didn't choose independence. Independence was the only option when dependence meant disappointment, when trusting someone meant getting hurt, when being soft meant getting crushed. So you built your entire identity around never needing anyone. And now, at 45, 50, 55, you're sitting in a life you constructed entirely by yourself. And it's impressive, and it's lonely, and you don't know how to let anyone in because the door was welded shut when you were 11. You're not self-made, you're self-preserved, and there's a difference that'll keep you up at night once you see it. Think about your closest relationship right now, your partner, your best friend, your sibling. How many of them have ever seen you completely fall apart? How many of them know the version of you that's scared, that's unsure, that doesn't have a plan? Probably none, because you decided at 11 years old that vulnerability is a luxury you can't afford, and every year since then, the walls got thicker. Not because you don't want connection, but because the child inside you still believes that the moment you lean on someone, they'll leave, just like before. Cost number 6, you minimize everything. And here's what nobody tells you about that survival instinct. It doesn't just protect you from the world, it protects you from yourself. It wasn't that bad. Other people had it worse. At least I had a roof over my head. Sound familiar? Gen X is the generation that turned pain into a competition and then disqualified themselves from winning. You compare your trauma to someone else's and convince yourself yours doesn't count. You dismiss your own childhood because someone somewhere had it harder. People say that's humility, that it means you're grounded, grateful. Wrong. That's minimization. It's one of the most common defense mechanisms in adults who experience childhood neglect. Your brain learned early that if you made your pain smaller, it was easier to carry. So you shrank it until you convinced yourself it didn't exist at all. But it does exist. Your body remembers every single thing your mind decided to forget. That's not gratitude. That's a survival mechanism that's long past its expiration date. Cost number 7, you never got to be a kid. This is the one underneath all the others. You were cooking dinner at 9, doing your own laundry at 10, navigating public transport alone at 11, babysitting younger siblings at 12, working your first job at 14. Some of you were the emotional support system for a parent who should have been supporting you. People call that growing up fast. They say it made you mature, responsible, capable. Wrong. There's a term for this, parentification. It's when a child is forced into the role of caretaker, emotionally, physically, or both, before their brain is even finished developing. It's not maturity, it's theft. Someone stole your childhood and told you to be grateful for the experience. And the part that hurts the most? You can't get it back. You can't unlive those years. You can't go back and be 8 years old and carefree and safe. That version of your childhood doesn't exist. It never did. And sometimes, maybe when it's quiet,
Maybe when you see a kid laughing in a grocery store, completely carefree, completely safe, something inside you aches. Not jealousy, something deeper. Grief for a version of yourself that never got to exist. A child that got to be small and messy and irresponsible and loved anyway. That child is still in there, still waiting for someone to say, you shouldn't have had to carry that. You were just a kid. You weren't mature for your age. You were a child doing the work of an adult because the adults in your life wouldn't. If you recognized yourself in 3 or more of these, I need you to hear something. You're not broken. You're not damaged goods. You're not too much or too closed off or any of the other labels people have put on you. You're someone who survived something that was never acknowledged, who carried something that was never named, who paid a price that was never counted. Not every Gen X story is the same. Class, country, family, it all shaped how this played out.
But for those who lived this version, you already know. You've always known. Drop the number that hit hardest in the comments. And if there's a cost I didn't mention, something you've been carrying that nobody talks about, write it down. Because this community sees what others miss. If this is your first video, this channel is for people who notice the patterns everyone else ignores. The patterns in your family, in your workplace, in the people around you. Subscribe for more. And if you'd rather read than watch, I write a weekly newsletter. No fluff, no spam. Just patterns worth seeing. Link in the description. You raised yourself. You buried your grief. You showed up every single day for people who never showed up for you. And you did it so quietly that the world forgot to ask if you were okay. You kept the lights on when the adults couldn't. You held it together when the family fell apart. You made it look easy because you didn't have a choice. And you never once stopped to count the cost. Until now. Well, I'm asking. You're not paranoid. You're perceptive. And you deserve to finally put this weight down.